Do you ever sit in a room full of people and feel more alone than you do in silence? You nod at the right moments and say the right words, but a part of you is quietly backing away as if the oxygen has thinned. Your body registers a pressure that your mind cannot explain. The jokes feel rehearsed. The outrage feels staged. The scroll tastes like static. You leave the gathering and the noise follows you home. A heavy coat you cannot take off. You are not angry. You are tired of pretending to be smaller than what you now know. You are tired of translating yourself into a language that keeps you asleep. What if what you are feeling is not a flaw but a signal? What if the pull toward quiet is not avoidance but accuracy? When the soul wakes up, it becomes allergic to counterfeit light. The surface choreography that used to pass for connection begins to sting. Your nervous system tells the truth before your schedule does. Crowds drain you. Performances pinch. The rooms that once rewarded your mask stop recognizing your face. And the only place that feels honest is the one you cannot post. This is not you quitting on the world. This is the world you have outgrown, asking you to stop betraying yourself to belong to it. There is a reason your relief arrives in nature, or in one real conversation, or in the early hour when the city forgets to perform. The deeper you grow, the gentler your senses become, and the more expensive it is to pay attention to what is not true. Think of it like radio interference. Most of your life you learned to live inside static. You built routines around the hum. Then, clarity tuned your dial, and now you can hear the signal underneath. You cannot unknow it. You cannot go back to dancing with the noise and call it music. The signal is not glamorous. It does not compete for your eyes. It asks for your consent and your honesty, two currencies that performance cannot counterfeit. Tonight, we are going to speak to the exact ache that has been following you into bright rooms and out of them. We are going to map why the world feels too loud, why your spirit keeps stepping toward the edge, and why withdrawal is not a disappearance, but a return to where your voice can live without shrinking. We will talk about the detox from noise, the clarity that emerges when you stop feeding the shadow, the quiet rebuild of a life that fits, and the rare kind of reentry that lets you serve without dissolving. If you have been wondering whether you are losing your place in society, consider that you might be finding your place in truth. The universe is not pushing you away. It is guiding you to the margin where your depth can breathe, and from which your light can travel farther than performance ever could. Noise does not leave because you ask it nicely. It leaves when you stop feeding it. The first shift awake people make is not dramatic. It is a quiet refusal to keep buying what exhausts them. You start noticing which inputs spike your nervous system and which ones settle it. You notice that certain conversations always end with you doubting yourself a little more than when you walked in. You notice how your hand reaches for the same screen every time an uncomfortable feeling rises, and how, after the scroll, the feeling has multiplied. This is the beginning of the detox. Not a purge you announce, but a recalibration of attention. Attention is oxygen. Whenever you give it to grows. When you learn to take oxygen away from the fake light dims. When the noise dims, the signal emerges. As the static fades, shadow clarity arrives. This part can sting. When you stop numbing, you begin to see the roles you played to survive rooms that did not want your whole self. You hear yourself laughing a little too loudly to prove you belong. You remember how often you took positions you did not believe in just to keep the circle smooth. You catch the moments where you traded truth for harmony and called it maturity. Do not use this awareness to punish yourself. Use it to retrieve yourself. The universe is not tallying your past performances like a debt collector. It is asking whether you will stop charging interest on a costume that no longer fits. When you admit the trade you have been making, the trade ends. You do not need an apology tour. You need a decision that moves you one step out of choreography and one step into coherence. Coherence is the opposite of spectacle. It is the subtle click you feel when what you know and what you do stop contradicting each other. It is the conversation that leaves you taller instead of thinner. It is the schedule that puts your deepest work where you can actually reach it. In this stage, your world may look smaller from the outside. Fewer events, fewer rooms, fewer acquaintances. That smallness is not collapse. It is concentration. A flame focused through a lens does not disappear. It becomes hot enough to cut through what used to resist it. Your attention, gathered, becomes that lens. With clarity and concentration comes the pull to step back. Not to hide, but to heal in conditions that do not corrupt the healing. The body teaches you how. After an injury, you do not train at full weight the next day. You reduce load, refine form, rebuild strength where the movement was compensating. The same applies to spirit. You reduce the load of the roles that kept you twisted. You refine the form of your daily life so it stops injuring your integrity. You rebuild strength in solitude so that when you re-enter, you are not asking the room to hold you upright. Solitude here is not punishment or trend. It is a clean field where you can hear yourself without having to translate your voice through 1,000 expectations. People will misunderstand this part. They will call it withdrawal because they cannot feel the quality of your quiet. Let them be wrong. You are not ghosting the world. You are reintroducing yourself to the parts of you that were ghosted while you were busy being acceptable. Let the garden be small for a season so the roots can hold. If you crave proof that this is working, do not look for applause. Look for the practical fruits of quiet. You finish what you start. You keep the promise you made to your mornings. You no longer need to argue your boundaries because your life reflects them before you speak. Your sleep becomes a conversation with something kinder than worry. As the quiet deepens, you will notice a different kind of pain. It is the ache of seeing shadows where you used to see enemies. You watch arguments turn into mirrors that neither side recognizes. You hear the hunger behind theatrics and the fear behind aggression. Compassion grows with this sight, but so must your boundaries. Compassion without boundary is corrosion. Boundary without compassion is stone. Your path is the middle way that refuses to perform for either extreme. You can love a person and still refuse their favorite illusion. You can bless a room and still leave it when the cost of belonging is your self-respect. Eventually, the map you are drawing from the inside begins to demand external changes. You might rearrange your work to match your honest rhythm. You might reduce social media to the tiny slice that does not hijack your nervous system. You might choose a smaller circle that speaks your language without requiring subtitles. These changes do not make headlines, but they make a life. And as they take hold, the loneliness shifts flavor. It stops tasting like exile and starts tasting like altitude. You are not above anyone. You are simply breathing air that your spirit can metabolize. From here, it becomes possible to build something steady, not as a retreat from the world, but as a foundation from which your presence can finally help it. Authentic withdrawal is not the same as quitting. Quitting says nothing matters. Withdrawal says what matters deserves conditions that do not corrupt it. Think of it as building an inner monastery in the middle of your life. Not a fantasy cloister, but a set of rooms you protect from noise so your soul can finish sentences it has been trying to say for years. In practice, this looks like designing days that honor your real rhythm rather than the rhythm you perform to be acceptable. It looks like 1 hour where your phone is not invited and the deeper work is. It looks like choosing the conversation that stretches you without shaming you and declining the one that confuses chaos with passion. The point is not to hide from humanity. The point is to meet it as someone who is no longer translating themselves down to the lowest common lie. As you build that monastery, translation fatigue begins to fade. You stop bending your language into shapes that keep rooms comfortable. You discover that silence is not empty. It is full of instructions that performance cannot hear. A sentence arrives in the quiet, and it lands with the weight of a key. Speak less and mean more. Move slower and finish stronger. Aim smaller and hit deeper. None of this is glamorous to people who worship noise. but you can feel the intelligence returning to your hands. Your work becomes honest. Your presence becomes calm enough to see the patterns beneath the shouting. This is the hour to choose edges instead of centers. Centers reward conformity. Edges reward coherence. On the edge, you meet people who are not threatened by depth because they did not come to be distracted. These are the places where a circle of 3 can be more powerful than a crowd of 3,000. Where a walk through trees does more for your nervous system than a week of scrolling. Where a craft practiced in silence repairs something the loudest argument could never touch. If you cannot find such a place, begin it. One room in your home that belongs to attention. One meeting with a friend who does not ask you to shrink. One ritual that tells your spirit it can trust you again. People will feel the difference in you, and some will test it. They will invite you back into the old script, back into the performance where your value depended on how convincingly you could betray yourself. Let your answer be simple. No to the script. Yes to the person. You do not have to convert anyone. You only have to stop rehearsing. The relationships that can live in truth will feel relieved. The ones that cannot will try to negotiate your quiet back into spectacle. You are not on trial. You are building a life where your soul does not need a lawyer. If this is meeting you in the exact hour you needed to hear this, type "I'm spiritually awake" in the comments. Not to collect approval, but to make a small vow you can keep before the day ends. Then let one action carry that vow into your actual life. Even if that action is as simple as protecting 10 quiet minutes that no one else can spend. In this season, guard against 2 temptations. The first is cynicism that hardens into superiority. Superiority is just a new mask that isolates you under a different name. The second is isolation that forgets its purpose. Solitude is for integration, not for disappearing from the responsibilities you are called to hold. Integration means you return the pieces of you to their rightful places. The part that cared too much about being liked learns to care more about being real. The part that took on everyone's weather learns to carry an umbrella instead of pretending the rain is its fault. The part that confused urgency with importance learns to sit until the real task stands up on its own. As these pieces find each other, the world will begin to rearrange around your integrity. Invitations will feel cleaner. Work will gather where your attention is most alive. The crisis of belonging will soften because you no longer outsource your belonging to rooms that do not value it. From here, the question is not whether you will disconnect forever. The question is how you will rebuild a way of being that lets you remain in the world without surrendering the self you fought to become. The answer is not theory. It is the shape your day takes when you honor what you know. It is the way your yes stays clean and your no stays kind. It is the way your quiet stops being a hiding place and becomes a base. Reentry begins long before you publicly return. It starts the day your inner monastery grows strong enough to face weather without collapsing. You notice you can walk through the old corridor without shrinking to fit it. You can hear the performance and decline the part without hostility. You can sit in a room where the conversation is all surface and still keep your depth without turning it into a weapon. This is the quiet test of readiness. Not whether you can win the argument, but whether you can keep your frequency while offering kindness. Service from this place does not look like rescuing anyone. It looks like living in a way that makes permission contagious. Build your bridge with small spans, not dramatic leaps. Say yes to the spaces that can hold an honest voice and no to the ones that punish it. Share one sentence of truth where you would have performed a paragraph. Offer work that is faithful to your craft rather than optimized for applause. Protect the morning that steadies you and notice how that single boundary keeps you generous through the afternoon. Contribution is a rhythm that begins at home. If your house leaks attention, your gifts will evaporate before they reach the world. Patch the leak and your generosity will travel farther with less effort. Choose edges for your first steps back. Edges are where conversation can survive honesty. They are the small rooms where nuance still breathes. The circles where disagreement is a path to clarity rather than a sport. The projects where quality matters more than speed. On the edge, you do not need to translate your depth into slogans. You can speak in full sentences and let silence do part of the teaching. If you cannot find such a room, assemble one. Two people who refuse to trade truth for spectacle can begin a culture. A weekly practice shared without performance can become a harbor that keeps you from drifting back into the old tide. Guard your nervous system as if it were the instrument of your calling, because it is. Limit the inputs that scramble your signal. Touch the ground enough that your body remembers it belongs here. Keep a pace that your breath can respect. When you feel the old static rising, step back before the noise decides for you. This is not fragility. It is stewardship. The universe gives more to those who can keep what they receive without burning their hands. As your new pattern stabilizes, the loneliness changes again. It turns into a spaciousness that invites the right companions. People who are allergic to performance will find you. Collaborations that used to drain you will either transform or end. You will stop auditioning for rooms that were never meant to cast you and start building work that does not require permission. The measure of success shifts from volume to integrity. Did you keep the shape of your soul while you offered your skill? Did your day reflect the truth you claim to value? Did your presence leave the space clearer than you found it? These are the questions that keep you at the edge where your light travels farthest. There will still be days when the center tries to recruit you back with praise or panic. Praise will promise belonging if you will soften your edges. Panic will tell you the world is burning and your nuance is indulgent. Remember what you learned in the quiet. You cannot heal what you imitate. You cannot elevate a room by abandoning the posture that gave you something to offer. Stand gently in the reality you paid for with practice. If you are to be of any use, it will be as a person who knows how to remain whole while moving among fragments. You are not disappearing. You are choosing conditions where your soul can keep its shape. That choice is not against the world. It is for the truth you bring to it. The rooms that once required you to dim will call you difficult. Let them. Difficulty is what fragile systems call integrity that refuses to bend the wrong way. Your work now is simple and brave. Stay with the signal you learned to hear in the quiet. Build from it in small, faithful ways. Speak it when it serves. Protect it when the room cannot hold it. Let your days prove that depth can move through ordinary hours without needing a stage. If you wondered whether the ache to step back means you were failing, hear this before you sleep. Stepping back is how you learn to stand. Solitude did not make you hard. It made you accurate. Now you can be in the world without agreeing to be of the noise that runs it. The universe will trust you with influence in proportion to how gently you hold your frequency when no one is watching. You do not have to join the center to help it. Stand at the edge where breath is possible and offer what only breath can carry. When you leave a room, leave it clearer. When you return home, return whole. That is a life that does not apologize for its light. If this somehow spoke to the part of you that is done performing and ready to live from signal, stay close. Subscribe to our community and keep walking with us at the edge, where depth can breathe and your light can travel farther without shrinking. See you again tomorrow, my friend.